So one is learning and testing ability and bar passage, tremendous correlation. The second that we looked at was well-being, very direct correlation, and again, that's the opposite of depression and anxiety, well-being. And the third was motivation for their career. Was their motivation one of those two good motivations, which mainly one is that it's driven by your values and you're going to have some meaning and purpose, and the other is enjoyment. So all these things in all the law schools that we've tested are really malleable once we do some faculty training. And if you want to, anybody who happens to have children, if you want to understand how to get more happiness, more effective performance, and better motivation from your children, all you need to do is learn about autonomy support. And from your employees, partners, it's all the same thing. So these are real life skills, but they are shown mathematically to apply to law schools. So that's the good news. We know what to do now. Next step, we need to do it. We can go to law firms and talk to them. We can go to law schools and talk to them. People can pick up books and read them. I've written an article about it in that Humanizing Symposium issue of Washburn. I've got booklets. I guess I did the first booklet. I have two now. One's on career, because I know so many lawyers are getting into jobs they don't like, that don't make them happy. So I thought we need to take all these principles that were, these needs, values, motivations, optimism, and pessimism, all this, and roll it into these booklets about law school and choosing a career. So you do all the same things you were doing before, but you understand how your choices from hour to hour, not big choices, but your choice for this hour, what I'm going to do and how I see what I'm doing, whether it's studying, working, changing my baby's diapers, doesn't matter what it is. How that's going to play into your sense of my life is wonderful. And I'm grateful to be here doing it, or not. And so the first one was about law schools, because that's where, that's where the watering could be done first. All the lawyers went to law school, so I figure if we can get the water down here, we can really have a huge effect. And everything's a sprout here, too, so it can be affected more easily. I mean, the students come thirsty for knowledge, and they want knowledge that will work for them. And so all the knowledge we give them is great, but we need to give them some of this too. That's the whole idea of humanizing legal education. And a big piece of the section on balance in legal education. We need to balance out what we're doing with some of this well-being and thriving as well. So students get the whole package. Over 100 law schools have bought those booklets, because they're like $1. It's like the cost of a cup of coffee if they buy them in bulk for their students. They're giving pizza parties, and they got a keg out on the green. They're spending more than this on beer for students to have a party, and it's got all this scientific research in it. How you can have a nice life as a law student and a lawyer. So I guess schools are seeing that this is a worthwhile thing, and they easily have the budget for it. So more than half the law schools have bought bunches of these booklets to give to their students. So I've been just very happy about that. And I get a lot of good feedback. I've got my email address in there. People said you shouldn't do that, but if students want to email me, it's great. And I don't get a lot. People are respectful, but the ones I get are really nice to see. And that's been interesting also to see which law schools are open to this. And I think this is another piece of good news. Not just that we have the information now that really, I'm not saying this is the whole picture, come on. I've been doing this research for 6 years. You're not going to get the whole picture in 6 years with no funding, not a dollar, just goodwill and hard work and whatever. A very helpful dean who's been very supportive. So I've been grateful for that constantly. But, this is a big piece of it. For sure. I mean, because it's spanning all of the modern psychology, nearly all that I can find, and putting it into the law school context. So, and the law schools that have, it's from top to bottom. I won't name schools, but it's just like of the top 30 schools, if you look at the rankings, U.S. News and World Report, nearly half of them, sometime in the last 3 years, has bought a bunch of these and given them out to their students. And same thing for all the tiers. So it's not falling in a particular place. It seems to be mostly the deans of students, the legal writing teachers, some of the professors of different sorts. So that's been great. The word is getting out there, and I think that's good news because it shows that really in down-home, apple pie law schools, people are there in positions of authority in the administration and teaching positions that recognize this as a problem and are willing to try to do something about it. The idea of this in my mind was, here's something, if you're worried about it, here's something you can do, skip the pizza next week and get them these booklets and maybe have a couple discussions about it. And I guess the last piece I would say that comes to mind is this, that we had this, Washburn Law School hosted this Humanizing Legal Education conference, and I ended up doing this paper for that was quite comprehensive, talking about what law schools could do, and there's a lot of ideas in that paper, and there's a huge number of great ideas in the other papers as well. I do think one of the things that's going to be very important for people is, of course, to learn this for themselves as individuals, whether they're lawyers or law students. But the other thing is for teachers to really get a grasp on this simple sequence, because if the teachers are interested in our 3 outcomes that we tested, learning and testing, including bar passage, which they are, motivation for career, which they are. They want students to have good, happy careers where they're doing good, meaningful work. And the well-being of the students, which I know they are. Nobody wants depressed students. It's a big drag on everything, including the classroom environment. The students aren't engaged. They're not excited. They're not participating. You see it as you go through law school. It's obvious in a lot of the classes. If you want that, then it's really pretty clear that you got a clear path to it, and it all starts with your approach as a teacher. What is autonomy support, and how do you provide it to students? That's all you need to know, and the rest will flow from there. So it's all good news because that information is there. There's obviously interest in the law schools, at least in some segments of most law schools. And then the question is how to get it out to the broad-based faculty in a way that doesn't feel threatening. Because it's so new. This isn't about the scholarship that's going to get you tenure, get you promotions, get your school well-known and placed in great journals and all that. And all that's important. I'm not denigrating that at all. But it's a whole new piece for legal education. That's why when we did the listserv here, I didn't call it Humanizing Legal Education. I called it a humanizing dimension for legal education. And I think this is what the Carnegie report is saying that just came out last year, and the best practices, Roy Stuckey and others as well. What we're doing is fine. It's just not enough. We need to keep being excellent at what we're doing, but we need to teach more skills, which is practical, which is autonomy support. Make that point real clearly in this most recent paper. And we need to be focusing on this well-being, because people who aren't feeling good are not going to do good, and they're not going to do well either. So I guess that's the whole story.